Hi everybody, welcome to this next video. So we're going to be talking about completing the square in this video. So if you haven't watched the video on completing the square, please go back, watch that one first before this. We're also going to be talking about factorising and solving quadratics. So if you haven't watched the video on factorising to then solve quadratics, look at that. And if you're not sure about quadratic graphs in general, go back, watch the video on that as well, because you'll get an idea on what quadratic graphs should look like. Now, let's jump straight in. Got a lot to talk through in this one. We're going to talk first of all about the fact that this is about sketching. Okay, so it doesn't need to be accurate, fully accurate. It just needs to have some key points in the right place. So the key things you're looking for are making sure you know what your Y-intercept is. Making sure you know what your roots are. Okay, and this is the point where it crosses the x-axis. And then the next one is your turning point. Now, the way we do the turning point is we use completing the square, which is why I said if you're not sure about how to do that, make sure you go back and watch the previous video I've done on completing the square. So there are three key things that we're going to need to know, okay, in order to sketch accurately. So let's jump straight in and look at this first equation we've got here. So y is equal to x squared plus 8x plus 12. First thing you should know, easy to identify, this is your y-intercept, okay? The point where it crosses the y-axis in this question is at 12. So straight away, I can just mark 12 on my set of axes I've got there. Okay, I've done this as quite a small graph because I wanted to fit quite a lot of different questions on the sheet for you, just so you could see. So just being careful that each scale here, this is 10 to 12, that's 2. And on the bottom as well, that's 2. So we'll just double check our coordinates as we're going through. Okay, next thing is to find the roots. Now, to find the roots of a quadratic, you solve it. 3 ways you can solve, either by quadratic formula, by completing the square, or by factorising and solving. So the first thing I'm going to look at is to see whether or not this actually does factorise. Are there two numbers that add to give me 8 and multiply to give me 12? Straight away, I can figure out that 6 plus 2 gives me 8. 6 times 2 is 12. So yes, this does factorise. From here, I factorised it, but I still need to solve it. So I say x plus 6 equals 0, or x plus 2 equals 0, and therefore x is equal to minus 6, or x is equal to minus 2. So these 2 points here actually now become my roots. So on my graph, I go to minus 2, and I go to minus 6, and I put both those values on the x-axis, okay? They are called your roots. Now, from here, the next bit I need to find is the turning point, because I've got now 3 values on my graph, but I don't quite know if I was to then quickly think about what this would look like. I know that my graph would make a U shape, but I don't know how low that's going to go. And so this is where your turning point comes in. So to find the turning point, we complete the square. As I said, if you're not 100% sure on that, go back to the video and watch it. Now, I label it A, B, and C. I half my B value. So in this case, it's 8. Half of 8 is 4. So I get x plus 4, all squared. Then I square that B value I've got, that 4 I've got, turn it negative, always turn it negative, put it on the outside, and then bring down your C value, and your C value here is 12. Tidy that up, I've got x plus 4, all squared, and then minus 16 plus 12 gives me minus 4. Now, that is your completing the square. That process is what we've spoken about before in a previous video. But from here, what you have to now do is we change this sign only. So, the turning point for this graph actually now becomes minus 4. But this sign here stays the same. So minus 4 is your turning point. And I can go down and plot that point on here. What you'll notice is this turning point here is in the middle of the 2 roots as well. Okay, so it's a nice element of symmetry that goes on. That's really important for this next bit we speak about. This turning point if I was to draw a mirror line through the turning point, it will allow me to then reflect the graph the other side. So if I now do this right hand side of the graph, I'm going to go through that point there and then up to that point there. This 12 is 2 squares away from my mirror line, which means that I need to go 2 squares the other side, and I would have a point there as well. And that will therefore allow me to sketch down through that point, down to the bottom point. That becomes your turning point. And now that is a sketch of the graph y equals x squared plus 8x plus 12. Okay, so 3 steps. Plot your y-intercept. That was that point. Find your roots by factorising, then solve. -2, -6. Complete the square. And then when you get to this final stage here of complete square, you change this sign, but you leave this sign the same. Plot that point. Think about putting a mirror line in if you want to add that extra point up there. And then you don't actually need to leave that mirror line in, so you could rub that out afterwards. And then that's your graph sketched. Okay, if you want to have a go at it now yourself, have a go at this one here. There is actually 2 different examples here. The bottom one's a little bit harder because it's a 2x squared, but pause the video if you want to. Have a go at those and see if you can do it yourself. Okay, so hopefully you've now had a go at this. Here's what we look at doing. So the first thing I'm going to do is put on there my Y-intercept, which is that +8. Then the next thing I'm going to do is factorise it. So I'm looking for 2 numbers that add to give me -6, but multiply. Add to give me -6, but multiply to give me 8. So in this case, it's going to be -4 and -2. They're both going to end up being negative numbers. And then I just flip the sign, so it becomes x is equal to 4 or x is equal to 2, because as I say, x minus 4 equals 0 or x minus 2 equals 0. So they become my 2 points I can now plot. So 4 and 2. And then from here, we need to complete the square. So let's do that in pink again. So we take our b value, which is -6, and half it, all squared. Then we square this new b value, -9. Always turn it negative, remember, and then bring down your c value there. Remember, that's your a, that's your b, that's your c. So we end up with x minus 3, all squared, -1, because it's -9 plus 8 gives you -1. And then you change this sign, which gives you +3, and then -1. So 3 minus 1 is that point there. Again, if you want to look at that mirror line, you can just draw your dotted mirror line down there, because that's where I know the line of symmetry would be. And then this red point is 1.5 squares away. So therefore I go 1.5 squares away, and that would end up being over there. Then I can sketch my graph through those points, finish it off like that, and I can remove that mirror line if I want to as well. Okay, so that's that one done. Let's now look at this next one. So it does become a little bit harder because of the fact that we've now got this 2x squared in front of it. So the first thing is we still plot that -10. That is my y-intercept. But the next thing I need to think about now is how I factorise this. Now, luckily, all of this does divide by 2. So if I divide all of that by 2, I end up with x squared minus 4x minus 5. So by dividing all of that by 2, I can then start to find my factor pairs and then begin to solve it. So what adds to -4 but multiplies to -5? Well, there's only a couple of things that multiply to 5, and it's 1 and 5. So I know it's going to be a 5 and a 1 in the brackets, but I need to think to myself, how am I going to make -4 out of those 2 numbers? So it's going to be -5, sorry, and then +1 equals 0, and then you say x is equal to 5 or x is equal to -1. Now there is another method how you can factorise and solve that. I explained that in a previous video, so check that one out, which is factorising and solving quadratics if you're not 100% sure. So now I go back to my graph, and I put a cross up here at 5, and I put a cross down here at -1. So they are my 2 points. Now what I need to do is complete the square. So I've got to find the point where this graph turns. Now, because of this 2x squared, it complicates it. What you have to do is factorise out that 2 first of all. So all of this does divide by 2. So I call it 2 brackets x squared minus 4x minus 5. So factorising out that 2 gives me that. From here, I can almost ignore that 2 for now, and I complete the square for this bit inside. So x minus 2, remember, halving your b value, put it inside the brackets, all squared. Now you square your new b value, so minus 2 squared becomes 4, but it's minus 4, remember, because you always keep it negative, and then bring down your c value of 5. Put that 2 back from the outside. Now let's tidy that up a little bit. So x minus 2 all squared minus 9, because minus 4 minus 5 is minus 9, and I've still got my 2 on the outside. And then the last step here is you're basically multiplying that part by that, so I end up with 2 brackets x minus 2 all squared, and then you do your 2 multiplied by that, which gives you minus 18. The same process happens here. We change this sign now becomes a plus 2. This one stays as a minus 18, so my turning point is 2 minus 18, so you plot that point down there. Now, I don't necessarily need to add in a mirror line here, because actually if I follow the line all the way down, go through that point, this is my turning point, and then I follow the point back up through this part, I've already got a quadratic that looks quite nice and smooth in the way that it's represented. Okay, so that's a little bit harder, that one, because we've got a 2x squared in front of the we've got a 2 in front of the x squared. Obviously the previous one there is a little bit easier because it's just an x squared. Okay, hope you found that useful, hope it makes sense. Remember your key things that you're looking for: y-intercept, factorise and solve, or if it doesn't factorise and solve, you could potentially use the quadratic formula. And if you're not sure how to do that, look on another video that I've done on solving using the quadratic formula, and then your turning point, and then you take all those points, plot them all together. Good, hope you found it useful, and I will see you all in the next video.